Hello, Dog Lover. In this video, we're going to talk about how to transition from whatever diet you are feeding your dog to raw diet. If you need to actually transition or not. And also, we're gonna simplify dog diet and feeding. And today I have with me Scott J. Marshall II, aka Dog Dad, once again with me. And he's going to help us to understand and go through all these raw feeding 101 concept. Hello, Scott. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well. How are you, Saro?
Very good. I'm very excited about today's video because we're gonna, because we're going to really get into simplifying raw diet, and we're gonna start first of all mentioning that this is a video for everybody, and if you are thinking to transition from whatever diet that you are feeding your dog to raw diet, this is the video. In part one, we talked about why kibble is not a proper diet for your dog. In part two, we talked about why raw diet is a proper diet for your dog. And in this video, we're going to break it down for everybody, for anybody who's beginners and you just want to start learning or start feeding your dog raw diet, what to do. So Scott, my first question is, do we need to transition from whatever diet we're feeding to our dogs to raw diet?
Yeah, there's a transition. There's so many different ways of doing it. There's so many different ways that people look at it, and that's why it bothers me a lot when, this is going to sound kind of hypocritical, because I have a course that teaches people my way, and I say this is a good way. So this is going to sound a little hypocritical, but there's more than one way to do it, and they work for different dogs, and some of them will all work for an individual dog regardless of which one that you choose. So there's several different ways that you can transition, but yes, there is a transition just by the very definition of the word of going from one thing or the other. But in my opinion, the best way to switch, regardless of what comes after it, is the cold turkey switch. Because if your dog is going to have sensitivities to transitioning to raw food, in my opinion, just in my opinion, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but in my opinion, if your dog has those sensitivities, they're going to have them whether you do a cold turkey switch or not. So what I recommend is to just get on with it and go cold turkey. Now, if you have an adult dog, in my opinion, the best thing to do is feed them their last kibble meal. And the adult part is important. If you have an adult dog, 12 to 18 months and older, then do a 24-hour fast after their last kibble meal, and then immediately just start them on raw food. Give their body time to get all of the kibble out of their system, basically, create I guess you could call it a clean slate in their digestive system, and then get started. So whether from that point, after your 24-hour fast and then going to food, whether you do that slowly by adding one thing at a time, like I recommend to people, or whether you do everything all at once, you have just as much chance for one of those things to work for your dog as the other. But before that, I recommend the same thing to everybody. Especially if you have a dog that is experiencing problems because of the kibble. If you have a dog that is experiencing allergies and itching and scratching and all these things that are from the kibble, or at least you believe they are from the kibble, there's no reason to keep your dog, suffering, so to speak, just for the sake of slowly transitioning. I know that there are lots of people that have a concern about, I just bought a bag of dog food, a bag of kibble a month ago, and there's still half of it left. I don't want to waste it. Well, you don't have to. You can give that to a friend that isn't ready to transition.
You can donate it to the...
You can donate it, exactly. There's plenty of rescues and animal shelters and all kinds of places that would be willing to take on free food. And if they won't take opened packages, I guarantee you can find somebody online or a friend that has a dog that will take the free food. So don't let the $10 worth of kibble that you may be not feeding to your dog keep you from getting your dog off that food that is making them suffer and scratch and itch and all those other things that come along with it.
Exactly. Great point. Now, let's say I've been feeding my dog kibble and I really want to change to raw diet. So what do I do now? I know you have a course for it, but let's start with, educating dog owners, those people who just want to start feeding their dog raw diet. And I've been feeding my dog kibble. I fed my dog and I'm waiting 24 hours now. What do I do next?
So after your 24-hour period, after your 24-hour fast, and again, this is for adult dogs, unless you have, this is a really sensitive topic, a really controversial topic, but fasting puppies is really controversial because they should be eating consistently. So that's really controversial, and we'll leave it at that and look into that really deeply yourself. But let's just focus on adult dogs because that's what a lot of people are going to be transitioning. Mm-hmm. After your 24-hour fast, there's 3 main ways that you can do this. You can either A, go the route that I recommend to people, which is to start with a single food item at a time, because we're making a drastic change in this dog's diet. Maybe they've received raw treats or something like that in the past, but for the most part, this is brand new to them. It's brand new to their system. Just like you or I switching from, pizza and Mountain Dew and Doritos to organic chicken and a high fiber diet and all these things all at once, it's going to create all kinds of changes in the body. There may be some gastrointestinal issues. Maybe you're going to spend a lot of time on the porcelain throne, that kind of thing. So it's a really big change. So I recommend to people to go slowly. And by doing that, I mean, add a single white meat bone-in proteins like chicken or turkey or rabbit. Now, obviously, the turkey and the rabbit are going to be more expensive in almost all cases unless you happen to raise your own or have an awesome hookup of some kind. So most people start with chicken. And it's really ideal because it's a really bland meat. It doesn't have a lot of fat. And if you can even make it less fatty if you want to take the skin off and trim it if you know that you have a sensitive dog to changes in their diet.
Right. So do we get it from the store, pet store?
You can get it all over the place. If you want to, you can just get it from your simple grocery store. That's how I transitioned, was going to my local grocery store and getting bone-in chicken breasts with the rib meat and everything's all still attached. That was the very first raw meal that I ever fed. And that was to my first dog, Wolken, and my second dog, Horace, his very first meal was a chicken wing from the store. So you can go to there and it's completely fine. You'll hear lots of people say, oh, you shouldn't feed stuff from the grocery store because of bacteria. And unless you have a dog that has a massively compromised immune system, feeding them stuff from the grocery store is going to be just fine. So you can get it from the store, or you can do things like online ordering. There are lots of online raw food suppliers nowadays. I don't know outside the US very well, but here in the States, there's a plethora of options. There's places like rawfeedingmiami.com, Hair Today, hair as in a rabbit, Hare, Hair Today, gonetomorrow.com. There's tons of them out there. Just Google online raw food supplier for pets or for dogs or for cats, whatever. So there's tons of them. I use Raw Feeding Miami because they're amazing. They always have high quality, deliver fast, but it's besides the point. I'm not an affiliate with them. I'm not making any money. I'm just making recommendations.
No, I know, but simply you can Google and find out a raw diet store for dogs nearby and just go get it there, or from the grocery store nearby.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. If you get it from an online store or if you get it from the grocery store, the process is the same.
Yes.
So that's option number 1, is you start off with your white meat bone-in protein. And the bone-in, in my opinion, is important because it helps firm up the stool. We could go off on all kinds of tangents, but it's important because it firms up the stool. It provides calcium, it provides phosphorus, it provides magnesium, it provides all kinds of important things to the diet that the diet is not complete without. So white meat, bone-in protein, you want to stay on that for about a week or so before you move on to other things. The second option after your 24-hour fast would be what they call a balance from the start approach, which is you are going to add all of the basic things that are going to be included in the diet. And that would be what a lot of people call, and what I explain to beginners as 80-10-5-5. What I mean by that is 80% muscle meat, 10% bone, 5% liver content, and 5% non-liver organ. And you may hear some people call it offal on online resources. And in this approach, this balance from the start approach, you're giving all of that at once. You're saying, okay, here's your meat source, here's your bone source, and I've got a fly on me. Here's your meat source, here's your bone source, here's your liver, here's your non-liver organ, and you're just giving all of it at once. And healthy dogs, especially puppies, because they haven't gotten used to and accustomed to, and that's I guess the best word, used to the kibble. They're not so programmed with it, their body isn't programmed with it. They should transition that way really, really easy. Some puppies don't, but that should be really easy. However, for adult dogs, lots of them have problems with that because it's just too much at once. And that's why I always recommend the slow transition, one thing at a time to people. But if you're really, I just want to do everything at once, then go ahead and give it a try. Worst case scenario, your dog doesn't react to it very well, you can back off and you can start implementing the slow transition that I was mentioning in option 1. So that's option 2, is I'm giving you everything. If you go and look on, go to Instagram and look at somebody like Perfectly Rawsome, and you see one of their bowls of amazing food, and it's got bone broth and meat content and bone content and all these organs and stuff, and you just feed that, everything may be great. So that's option number 2, is just feeding all of it at once, your 80-10-5-5. The other option, which is what a lot of people do if they are unsure, if they're lacking confidence a little bit, they're like, I really want to do this, but I'm not confident in my ability to put together and build this meal, these diets myself, is they go with a pre-made. And a pre-made is basically option 2, but it's where everything is in there, but somebody else is doing it for you, pre-packaging it and grinding it into a grind. Sometimes they come in chubs, like you'll see hamburger in at the store. Sometimes they come in patties, like you'll see hamburgers at the store. And sometimes, less often, but still sometimes you'll see them come in little nugget form, basically. The most people that I see use this option, again, are the ones that are unconfident about making the switch and building these diets themselves. But they're kind of afraid, and they're not really sure that feeding raw meat isn't going to harm their dog. So for them, what it really is, other than the confidence thing, is my dog really going to be okay if I start feeding them raw meat? And so they give them this pre-made that they know is balanced already and they don't have to do themselves. And then they see that their dog is fine and all is well, and most likely they're thriving and seeing major improvements. Then they start going into option 1 and option 2 and putting these diets together themselves, because option 3 has a very big caveat, and that is that it is the most expensive option by far. And I say that slowly and intently because it is significantly more expensive. So if you are just unsure and you're lacking a little confidence and you want to see your dog do well on raw foods, and you don't want to have to worry about it, am I doing this right? Then pre-made is a good way to start and just get your feet wet and make sure and see that everything is going to be okay when your dog eats raw food. But I would encourage you, unless you happen to be a millionaire, or you have a massive hookup and you get everything for free, or you have a 10-pound dog, I would encourage you to get off of the pre-made as quickly as possible, unless you have massive access to cash, because it's expensive. Like, expensive. A friend ran the numbers one time for a popular, and I'm not going to mention them, but for a popular pre-made, on what it would cost to feed her 4 dogs per month, and it was over, if I remember correctly, $1,200 or $1,400 a month to feed her 4 dogs pre-made raw, versus the few $100s that it costs her to feed those 4 dogs with the DIY model that option 1 and option 2 lead you to. So there's some things to consider there.
Cool. Now I have 2 questions. So let's say we're going to go with option 2, DIY, 80-10-5-5, you said?
Yeah.
So let's say we go with that option. Where does the meat source come?
So this could come from all over the place. It could come from just about any type of animal. If it used to fly, swim, run, if it used to do one of those things, you can probably feed it. Now, again, just like the bone-in option, the white meat bone-in source that we were talking about with option 1, you can get it from a plethora of places. You can get it from the grocery store. You can get it from an online supplier. You can get it from local farmers markets. You can get it from local Asian markets, Polynesian markets. I mean, any ethnic market you can think of, anywhere that you can buy meat, you can use that meat. Okay. There are some arguments about feeding predators, other meat eaters, because of something called biomagnification, which we won't go into because it's a whole huge topic. But look into that if you want to consider feeding other meat eaters, other predators. But you can get it all over the place. A friend asked me in a previous interview, she has a YouTube channel too, Kimberly Gauthier. She asked me or actually I think it was a live stream, doesn't matter. But she asked me how many proteins that I feed. When we say proteins, we're talking about different animal meat sources. And she asked me how many proteins I feed. And I didn't think about this, but by the time we got done with the list, there were 14 different proteins. Now that doesn't mean that you need to go and feed 14 different proteins with every meal. It just means that that's part of the rotation. So sometimes I feed a lot of pork. Sometimes I feed a lot of turkey. Sometimes it's a lot of beef. Sometimes, there's so many different things that can be included into the diet. And a side note really quickly, one benefit to ordering things from online, like Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, like rawfeedingmiami.com, is you can get access to different types of proteins and meats and organs that you won't find anywhere else. Like I can, off of rawfeedingmiami.com, I can go and order ostrich liver and emu liver and bison kidney and emu necks, and so many things. So you can get it all over the place. Your grocery store, online, farmers markets, ethnic markets, all over the place. Okay. Anything that is a muscle meat, when they say protein or muscle meat, they're talking about an actual muscle, like, if it was, this is gruesome, but if it was a human being, like a bicep would be a muscle meat. It would be part of that 80%. Okay.
All right. So and the other thing is, for example, myself, I get meat, pre-made meat, just the meat from raw meat producing company, which is a local one. You can research again, find out who are the local raw meat producers for dogs.
Right.
And just, go and get it from them, which that's what I do. I go and get the meat from them, which is a local meat producer for dogs. I get it, and they produce also other stuff, and I get it there and I feed that. So there's an option like that as well. So if you do your research, you'll find out exactly where to get the meat and where to source it out. And most nowadays, in many locations, many areas, there are pet stores, and I think most of pet stores nowadays, they carry the raw diet as well.
Yeah.
They see a market in it, so they do carry it. And there are specialty stores as well who carry just the raw diet store for dogs. And you can go and ask them, I want to start feeding. What do I do? Usually they want to educate you as well. But you're getting the main education here anyway. So, so let's continue with, now I'm starting to feed my dog meat. Is it just meat? I know you just mentioned it that, it's a good idea to source it out in variety of proteins, meats. Mm-hmm. So we have two types of meat. We have white meat and red meat. So let's first of all, do we stick with red meat or do we stick with white meat? Do we mix them up? How much do we mix them up? Yes, no. There's a lot of, again, there are very few things, and I'll warn anybody right now that's going to go and research raw feeding. There are very few things that you will find online for raw feeding that is a sure thing that everyone agrees on.
Now, there's also lots of rules that are kind of, they just were set at some point, and then they became, doctrine law in Facebook groups and everything else. But here's what we know for sure. That as far as amino acids and all kinds of other things, red meat is superior in many ways to white meat. That doesn't mean that white meat is bad. It just means that red meat contains a lot of different things and in higher levels than white meat does. What a lot of people try and shoot for, which I do agree with, it's not a rule, but I do happen to agree with, both for variety and being able to get those additional amounts of amino acids and vitamins and minerals, is to shoot for something like 50-50. 50% white meat because it's economical, easier to get your hands on, and is still a good source of protein. And then 50% red meat because it has those higher amino acid values, higher minerals, higher nutrients, and so on. And the more red meat that you can feed, the better. Okay. So I have a friend that runs perfectlyrawsome.com, and she has a lot of hookups with local hunters, her family hunts, etc. So she feeds a very high red meat diet, 70 to 90% or more sometimes of red meat. I also know people that feed less than that. So they feed, 60 to 70% white meat and 30% red meat. So it's not a hard and fast rule. And I don't truly believe that you're going to be doing your dog any harm or real disservice by not following this exact 50-50 or more red meat thing. But that is a good number to shoot for, because you're mixing higher nutrient content with ease of access and economical value by going 50-50.
Cool. All right. So my next question is, do we need to add veggies if we're adding, should we add veggies to our dog's diet? And if yes, what should we add?
So yes, they can eat vegetables, but yes. Now the amount is hugely up for debate. Research that yourself, but there's no longer a debate about whether or not dogs can digest vegetables, and there's certainly no longer a debate scientifically on whether or not they are beneficial. They provide a massive amount of support, and we can even call it nourishment, to the dog's gut, which we've talked about in a previous video, that supports their immune system and creates a healthier dog. So in my opinion, yes, dogs on some level should get some amount of vegetables in their diet. And I get, for a lot of people, that's a huge switch. I wasn't this way for close to a decade, but as dog owners, we should keep learning, take in the new science and new information we get, and make changes accordingly, instead of just sticking with our old habits because that's what we've always done. So yes, I think dogs should have some level of vegetables in their diet. And which vegetables? Research this, but the bottom line is low glycemic vegetables, which basically means vegetables that have low amounts of starch and that are not going to cause your dog's blood sugar to spike every time that they take them, which is what the whole low glycemic thing is about. So that's things like kale, other leafy greens. Look into it, but we want low glycemic veggies.
Cool. So basically leafy green vegetables, and my take is that it helps with digestion in general when you add vegetables in the diet. Let's go to the next one. Should we add?
Correct. Yeah, it adds fiber and so on.
Yes. Let's go to the next one, which is, should we add supplements? And if yes, what are the basic supplements that we should add?
There are some supplements that I think everybody should look into, which would be coconut oil, which is a huge one. And there's one thing that is an absolute must, in my opinion. And you could, here it is, omega-3 supplements like fish oil, krill oil, cod liver oil. And the reason is your dog has to have omega-3s in their diet. Now you can feed whole fish to do this. It's a little bit different. It's easy if your dog will eat fish, but a lot of dogs, like my dog Woken, will not eat fish. So I have to supplement. So the only thing that I will say about having to feed a supplement is some kind of omega-3 supplement. If you cannot get your dog to eat whole oily fish, then you have to provide an omega-3 supplement of some kind. It's essential to your dog's diet. They cannot manufacture it in their body on their own, so you have to get it into their diet. Beyond that, I would recommend looking into things like coconut oil, kefir, digestive enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics. Look into all these different things on their own. But the one thing that I would tell everybody to do, other than the omega-3s, when you're considering a supplement, is to ask yourself 2 questions. And if you can't say yes to one of these 2 questions, then you probably don't need to feed that supplement. And one is, am I trying to fill a hole in the diet? Not a good example of this would be the omega-3 supplement like fish oil. That's filling a hole in the diet because your dog won't eat fish for some reason. Or 2, are you trying to alleviate a problem of some kind? For example, my dog Wolken is getting into his older years. He was neutered very young and he's having joint problems because of it. So we are supplementing turmeric paste to help with inflammation and help him, with ease of movement in that joint pain. So are you trying to fill a hole in the diet, or are you trying to alleviate a problem of some kind? And if you can't say yes to one of those 2 questions, then you should really consider whether or not you should spend the time and money on that supplement.
Very good points. Those are very important to remember and also focus on. And one more thing that I was going to add there, I would suggest maybe ginger as well. It's a good, free, cheap form of supplement which has tons of benefits. My last question is, how much do we feed our dog?
Total variable question. Huge, big X. This depends on not just things that are easy to identify that we can actually look at, like your dog's activity levels, but it also takes into account individual dogs. And as a very quick example, my 2 dogs, Wolken and Horace, are the same breed. They have the same parents. They're only separated by 1 litter. They were reared by their breeder in the exact same way. They are raised in the exact same home here, have almost identical diets. And the larger one, I have to feed a smaller percentage than the smaller dog who needs a higher percentage to maintain weight. So this is a huge variable. What I recommend people do is start somewhere between 2 and 3%, if they're an adult, 2 to 3% of the dog's body weight, and then gauge and look at that very closely and see what happens with the dog. If they start to lose weight, then increase that by half percentage increments. So go from 2.5% to 3%. If your dog starts, getting a little chubby, then do it the exact opposite way. Go from that 3% to 2.5%, or 2.5% to 2%. So you have to start somewhere, which is where the whole 2 to 3% thing comes from. But then you as the dog owner have to do your part and gauge your dog's response and adjust accordingly. There is no perfect formula or question answer calculator. It's all up to your dog, their activity levels, and how they metabolize food.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Very good points. Thank you very much. This was just this video, it's filled with information which we cramped in which is very useful and great to have you here, and we're learning a lot. And thank you very much for being here. And next time we're gonna talk about one more topic that it's very important to talk about. If there is any risk in feeding raw diet, we'll find out next time. And thank you for being here, Scott. And once again, can you tell us where we can find out about your online course and your channel?
Yes, you can find me on YouTube just by searching out Dog Dad. It's a very, very simple, I can't grab it right now, but it's a very simple orange logo that says Dog Dad. If you search that on YouTube, it'll be right up there at the top, and you can go and subscribe and watch all of the videos. I think I'm getting close to a couple hundred videos now.
Cool.
If you want to check out the online course and everything that's in it and what it's all about, then you can go to rawfeeding101.com, and from there you can also get to my other main webpage, which is dogdadofficial.com. So just go to rawfeeding101.com and you can get to everything else from there.
Cool. I'll have all this information in the description below. You can check it out. I'll have more information and more links and all additional information in the description. and you can check them out and learn more about raw diet. I just wanted to let you know that my online dog training course is available now. It's where you can learn how to train your dog using play and praise reward system without the use of treat, food, aversive tools, force, or domination. To learn more, click here. If you want to watch another video of mine, click here. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, click here.